Today we're talking about one of my favorite support champions in the game, Ghrush the Mangler. What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here. Now, before we get started on Grush, I have a really important question to ask you guys. What are you guys watching right now? I'm talking like TV shows, movies, things like that. So I'm the kind of guy that trusts personal opinions more than what Netflix's algorithm might tell me what I might and might not like. So let me know what you guys are watching in the comments because I'm always up for something new. So guys, here I am in Platinum Arena. Right now I'm number 44. This is my alternate account, Neon Ultra. So I normally don't push Platinum that much just because of the time zone I'm in. It's kind of difficult. But if this is something that you want to see me do, really push Platinum Arena, let me know in the comments. But guys, just a heads up, you know, in Platinum, you're going to see a lot of gold. You're not going to see KOs or apothecaries or guys like that. So it's not very free to play in Platinum. But once again, if that's something you want to see me do, let me know. All right, guys, on to Grush, one of the best support champions in this game. Yeah, I know it says defense, but really he is a support champion and he does it so well. And it's just crazy to me that he is free. So when I first started playing this game, you got two login champs. Your first week, you got Shaman. And after that, at the 2-week mark, you got Jizzo. Now, in addition to those two, if you just start playing recently, you get 9 more login champs. And a lot of them are super duper good. So right now is an awesome time to start playing Raid just because of all the freebies that you get, including really good login champs. So what's so good about Grush? Well, firstly, he keeps your team alive. Okay, so he puts up these continuous heals and he also puts up a leech on the other team. And he makes the other team hit weaker. Okay, so the other team is not hitting you as hard. So not only is he healing your team up, he's making the enemy team hit you weaker. So one of the mistakes that I made early on in my raid journey was really overvaluing damage dealing characters and undervaluing support characters. So now that I am in the end game, I can tell you, you need a strong supporting cast. You cannot just have a team full of damage dealing characters. This game doesn't work that way. So moving on to Grush, let's talk about his skills. Let's start with Grush's A1, Gore Slick Maul. Attacks one enemy. Has a 50% chance, bookable to 75, of placing a Leech debuff on the target for 2 turns before attacking. Damage based on defense. So all of Grush's damage is based on defense. So if you want him to do damage, you're going to need to bring up that defense stat. So what Leech does is when you attack an enemy that has a Leech debuff, you gain 18% of your damage back as health. So Leech is very good nowadays since it got buffed. And notice that Grush, when he applies it, it's for 2 turns. 75% chance, but if you get the Sniper Mastery, that can be 80% chance. So basically, if you keep on using Grush's A1, you can have 100% uptime on Leech for your whole team. So this is a very good debuff for keeping your team alive. On to Grush's A2, Bonebreaker Stomp. Attacks all enemies. Has a 60% chance, bookable to 100, of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff or a 30% decreased crit damage debuff for 2 turns. Damage based on defense. So this is on a 5-turn cooldown, bookable to a 4-turn cooldown. So the big thing to note here, guys, is the word or. You are either getting the decrease attack debuff or the decreased crit damage debuff. You're not getting both. It's only one or the other. So I think this A2 would have been better if it was just decreased attack. So I personally don't prefer the decreased crit damage for PvE content, which is primarily where you're going to use Grush. You're not going to use Grush in the arena or tag team or anything like that, where normally decreased crit damage would be more helpful because people are critting a lot when they're hitting your team. In PvE, the enemies aren't critting that much against your team, so it'd be much more useful to just have a decreased attack debuff. But as it stands, you're getting either one or the other, and I would say it's still a really good A2, but just for PvE content, you're better off if you just get that decreased attack rather than the decreased crit damage. On to Grush's A3, Smothering Swath. Attacks all enemies. Places a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. Places an additional 7.5% continuous heal buff on all allies for 1 turn if at least one enemy is hit with a critical hit. Damage based on defense. So this is on a 6-turn cooldown, bookable to a 4-turn cooldown. So Grush's A3 is one of his best moves. So not only are you getting 2 strong continuous heals, but if you crit, you're getting one of the weaker continuous heals. Now, should you build up his crit rate to get that weak version continuous heal for 1 turn? I would say yes. It's still super useful for keeping your team alive. And Grush, he does have a reasonable amount of damage. So putting a crit rate glove on him to get his crit rate up, to make sure he crits with this AoE, is definitely a good idea. It's worth it for even that weak continuous heal. Even that makes a huge difference in keeping your team alive. On to Grush's Aura. Increases ally defense and faction crypts by 30%. Now you guys know I am not a big fan of auras relating to faction crypts, but you will be using Grush in that Ogryn Tribe's faction crypt. Trust me, you will be. So this will be useful to you. On to Grush's gear. So are Grush's damage multipliers good enough to justify building an all-out damage type Grush? And for example, putting a Savage set on him or something like that? I would say no. His damage multipliers are good, but not great. So I don't think a damage Grush is the way to go. Instead, since Grush's moves are more about supporting his teammates and keeping them alive, I think that his gear should be more focused towards survivability rather than damage. So you see, I have Grush geared in a lifesteal set and an accuracy set. So what the lifesteal set does is it takes advantage of Grush's AoE attacks. So he has 2 of them, and all the damage he does, and remember he has good damage multipliers, he can get 30% of that damage back as health. So that's really good. And you have the accuracy sets on Grush as well, because Grush does apply debuffs. So he has that decreased attack, decreased crit rate, and Leech. And those are resistible. So that means you need to build Grush with accuracy to land those debuffs. I've also tried Grush out in Immortal gear and Regeneration gear, and those are good choices as well. Now let's talk about those bottom 3 pieces of gear on Grush. So for his glove, I have him in a crit rate glove. Remember, for his A3, in order to apply that weak continuous heal on all allies, he needs to crit at least 1 enemy with that AoE. So crit rate is definitely worth it. If you don't have it, it's okay, but I definitely think it's worth it to put a crit rate glove on him. And also, you're also getting that extra damage out of Grush. Remember, damage multipliers aren't bad. So more damage out of Grush, plus you're getting that extra continuous heal on top of those 2 strong version continuous heals from his A3. If you don't have a crit rate glove, it's okay. Just go with an HP percentage glove or a defense percentage glove. On to Grush's chest plate. So here we have a defense percentage chest plate. So remember, with the defense, not only are you getting the damage mitigation for Grush, but all of Grush's moves, the damage is based on defense. So the higher his defense goes, not only is he taking less damage, but he's outputting more damage. So defense percentage chest piece is the way to go. If you don't have that, go ahead and go with an HP percentage chest piece. That will give you the survivability. It just won't factor into Grush's damage. So what about Grush's boot? So here you see I have a defense percentage boot on him. Now the only reason I have this is because my speed substats are so strong on my gear. Notice I'm above 200 speed even without a speed boot. So just keep that in mind. If your speed substats are weak, then you will definitely need to put on a speed boot. But if they're strong, if you're getting really good speeds out of all your gear, then sometimes in the right situations you can choose to forego that speed boot in lieu of an HP percentage boot, a defense percentage boot, an attack percentage boot, whatever. Okay, but your substats need to be strong. Once again, if they're not, if you don't have really good speed substats, stick with the speed boot. On to Grush's accessories. So here I have a defense ring with defense percentage as the substats. So good once again for that damage mitigation plus Grush's damage output, the more defense you have. And try to get that HP too. So that's the 1-2 punch. You need defense and you need HP for the tankiness. Okay, so the best case scenario, instead of those attack stats which do nothing for Grush at all, a better ring would be defense percentage for the substats with HP percentage as well. On to Grush's amulet. Now here you see I have a crit damage amulet, but it's really not the main stat that I'm putting on this amulet for. It's for the substats. So if you're not focused on the damage, you're really looking at either accuracy or resistance as that substat for that amulet. So here you see I have both. I have a good amount of accuracy and also have a good amount of resistance. So for your support characters, you need to put some resistance into them in order for them to be able to do their jobs. So if they're immobilized somehow, if they're feared, if they're slept, if they're stunned, then they can't do their job of keeping your other people alive, okay? So don't neglect resistance. Resistance is super important for your support characters to do their job. So here, for Grush's debuffs, I have the accuracy, and for Grush to continue to take his turns freely, so to speak, I have the resistance. On to Grush's banner. So you guys see I have an accuracy banner here. Now you're gonna need to build your Grush with accuracy, because that's one of the best parts of his kits, his debuffs. And in order for those debuffs to land, he needs accuracy. So go with an accuracy banner on your Grush. On to Grush's total stats. So here we have 37,000 health. The attack we have 1400, which is completely irrelevant to Grush. 4,500 for defense, which is a good number. The returns on defense over 4,200 start to get smaller and smaller, so it's not necessary to build your Grush with like 5,000, 6,000 defense as far as damage mitigation goes. Now, if you want damage output, sure, you can build your characters that do damage based on defense, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 defense, no problem. But as far as damage mitigation, really you only need about 4,200 defense. Okay, so speed 205, once again, very good speed for PvE content. Over 200 is pretty good for PvE content. And once again, this is without a speed boot, so this is completely based on the substats of his gear. Okay, notice here we have a crit rate of 102. Really good. Once again, if you want that A3 to apply that extra continuous heal on the team, which I think is really important, get your crit rate nice and high. Now, just because you have a 102% crit rate does not mean you will always do a critical hit. The way raid works is there's always a 3% failure chance. So even with 100% too, it's not really 102%, it's actually 97%. So you can still sometimes fail to crit. It's no big deal when we're talking about his A3 because all he needs is one person to be hit with a critical hit. And then he puts up that extra continuous heal on the whole team. Crit damage, once again, we're not too focused on that. Grush's damage multipliers don't really warrant a high damage build in my opinion, but it's your account. Build him as you want. I would love for you guys someday to show me a crazy damage savage Grush build. I just don't think at this point his damage multipliers are good enough for that. But I would love to see that. If you guys really want to do that, just make a video and show me. I'd absolutely love to see that. Okay, we have debuff resistance 148. That's okay. It is a little bit tough to build both. So characters that you have to think about both resistance and accuracy, it can be a little challenging sometimes to build both. That's where you have a little flexibility in the chest piece, okay? Because you could put, if you want to, a resistance chest piece on and an accuracy banner. Okay, so you would be getting both the accuracy and the resistance. Now you would be dropping some of whatever other stat you had there. So for example, my defense percentage chest, I would be dropping that defense percent. But if you really want that resistance plus that accuracy, that chest piece is your flex piece, okay? And lastly, the debuff accuracy 291. If you can get around 300 for PvE content, that's pretty good. Now, if we're talking hard Doom Tower, it's gonna need to be higher. You're gonna need to be 350, 400, okay? But besides hard Doom Tower, 300-ish, a little bit over, you're doing pretty good for PvE content. All right, guys, on to Grush's masteries, starting with the offense tree. So firstly, we have Deadly Precision, crit rate plus 5%. Keen Strike, crit damage plus 10%. Life Drinker, heals by 5% of damage inflicted when attacking with 50% HP or less. So this is going to synergize really well with that tier 6 mastery War Master. So once we get to that, we'll talk about that synergy. Next, Bring It Down, increases damage inflicted by 6% when attacking targets with higher max HP. So in dungeons and dungeon bosses, this is literally every dungeon boss. You will literally get 6% more damage for all the bosses because they all have more HP than you. So definitely good for PvE content. Next, Methodical increases the damage inflicted by this champion's default skill by 2% each time it is used during battle. Stacks across each round in a battle up to 10%. So basically 10% more damage for those long battles with your A1s that basically most characters use most of the time. So it's just bonus damage. Lastly, War Master has a 60% chance of inflicting bonus damage when attacking. Bonus damage is equal to 10% of the target champion's max HP or 4% of the target's max HP when attacking bosses. Bonus damage can only occur once per skill and does not count as an extra hit. So the big deal here is that you can do a lot of extra damage even on really weak characters because this skill's damage is not based on your character. This skill's damage is based on the enemy's max HP. So those bosses that have a ton of HP, when you have this skill and it procs, it's going to hit really hard. So for PvE content, this is almost a must. Even, like I said, for your weak characters that you don't even put any crit rate, any crit damage into, put War Master on, okay? Because once again, that bonus damage you're doing is not based on your character. It's based on who you're hitting, okay? So that boss with a lot of HP is gonna get hit even harder. And War Master synergizes really well with the Life Drinker skill, okay? So once you have that mastery, they both synergize really well. And with the lifesteal gear, that is the thing. You might think lifesteal gear, well, only 30% of damage inflicted is not that much. But when War Master procs against the boss, now you're getting a ton of health back. So you see that synergy there with Life Drinker, Lifesteal Gear, and War Master. If you really want to keep your people alive, and this is why for Lifesteal Gear and War Master has been a staple in clan boss teams until you get an unkillable team. It has been a staple in clan boss teams because of that synergy. Okay, so definitely you want to keep your guys alive. You want that tankiness. You want that survivability. Lifesteal Gear with War Master, with Life Drinker. On to the support tree. So firstly, we have pinpoint accuracy, accuracy plus 10. Remember, Grush does need accuracy to land his debuffs. Next, Exalted Death heals this champion by 10% of their max HP the first time an enemy is killed in each round. So Grush doesn't have to do the killing. As long as anybody kills an enemy, that first enemy in each round, then Grush will get that additional healing. Next, Charge Focus increases accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. So the first time he does that AoE attack, then he's going to get that increased accuracy. Next, Rapid Response has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion is removed or expires. So Grush's A3 with those continuous heals, when they expire, he's going to get a chance to have his turn meter boosted, and he's casting a lot of those continuous heals, so he's going to get a lot of turn meter boost. Next, Arcane Celerity has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expires. So that attack down, crit damage down, and the leech, when they expire, Grush is going to have a chance of pushing up his turn meter. Next, Cycle of Magic has a 5% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1 turn at the start of every turn. So this is really good because some of his debuffs, for example, his attack down / crit damage down, there is not a continuous uptime with it. There is not 100% uptime with it. There's a gap. So those debuffs are for 2 turns, but it's a 4-turn cooldown when booked. So you're going to have 2 turns where you don't have attack down or crit damage down. So with this skill, you have a chance, if it procs, if you're lucky, to get that extra attack down or crit damage down, which makes a difference in the end, especially bosses hitting you really hard. So next, Lore of Steel increases the base stat set bonuses of all artifact sets that increase base stats by 15%. This increase is multiplicative, not additive. So for the Lifesteal set, this Lore of Steel wouldn't do anything, but for HP sets, Immortal sets, that accuracy set, since they multiply or increase base stats, there you would see the bonus. Okay, so for your Lifesteal sets, for your stun sets, your sleep sets like that, savage sets, Lore of Steel would not do anything for those sets. It's only those sets that increase your base stats. Next, Lasting Gifts has a 30% chance to extend the duration of any buff cast by this champion by 1 turn. Will not extend block damage, unkillable, or revive on death buffs. So this one is really good for those continuous heals. So he is putting 2 strong version continuous heals on your team with this A3. Plus, if you crit against an enemy, he's putting 1 weak version continuous heal on your team. So that's 3 continuous heals Grush is putting on your team. Now with Lasting Gifts, this can be extended. Okay, so that's a lot of healing. So Lasting Gifts, I think, is definitely good for your buffing champions. Okay, so your support champions that throw out buffs, this is definitely a really good mastery to take. And lastly, Master Hexer has a 30% chance to extend the duration of any debuff cast by this champion by 1 turn. It will not extend stun, sleep, freeze, provoke, fear, true fear, or bomb debuffs. So his leech with this mastery can be extended. His attack down can be extended. His crit damage down can be extended. So this is another good one. Now also Sniper, if you want to get an increased chance, for example, to place that A1, he has a 75% chance to place that Leech. But if you really want a higher percentage chance, you can go with Sniper. Increases the chances of placing any debuffs from skills or artifacts by 5%. Will not increase the chances of placing stun, sleep, freeze, fear, true fear, or provoke debuffs. So this is another good one for Grush, but you're just going to have to remove one of the other masters since we can't get all 3 in one tree. So there's Grush's masteries. I would say he's best used with the offense and support tree. I don't think defense is the best way to go because you're not getting any additional damage like from the offense tree, and you're not extending any buffs or debuffs like you are doing with the support tree. So I would say offense and support are the best way to go for Grush. Alright guys, so now it's time to see Grush in action. Now he's not like one of those big damage champs that's going to put up those insane numbers, but you're going to see him keeping people alive. That is his job, and that's why he's so great. Don't make the mistake I did, like as I mentioned in the beginning, of overvaluing damage champs and undervaluing support champions, okay? You're going to need a ton of support characters to get to the end game, and Grush is absolutely great. Now, stage 24 versus stage 25, it looks like per energy refill, stage 24 is more efficient for you to get better gear. Now, if we had unlimited energy, we're going to go stage 25 to get the best gear. But given stage 25 costs more, per energy refill, it looks like stage 24 is better to farm at. Okay, so that's why most people do stage 24 when they're trying to get those really good pieces of gear. So we're gonna see Grush do his thing on this free-to-play friendly team for Dragon's Lair 24. Alright guys, that is it, stage 24. Now does stage 25 work the same way with the same team? Yes. Alright guys, that is it for my Grush guide. I know I only showed you one dungeon, but honestly you can put him in any dungeon. You can put him in any PvE content and he's gonna do super well. He was really helping that team out in the dragon, if you saw. With all those poisons the dragon was throwing on, he was just countering it with those continuous heals. Really, any PvE content you can throw in Grush. Yes, he's a login champ, but it does not mean he sucks. He's really good. If he wasn't a login champ and you got him from a sacred or an ancient shard, you would be justified in being happy. This guy is good. So max him out, use him. He will make your raid life a lot easier. That is it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next video.